Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Today we are going to be looking at all of these palettes and consolidating these, plus this 36 tube set of watercolors from Paul Ruben's into one big palette. It's going to be so much fun. So while this looks like a ton of palettes, it's actually not that many because that's the box for that particular palette. That's the floral set. This one here is the 5th generation, and I don't have a box for this one. Then we have the pearlescent set, which you guys haven't really seen, and we're going to swatch for the first time in this video. And then the 4th generation set, which has a really neat palette. I like that palette a lot. And the emerald set. I call it the emerald set. It's the 3rd generation set. Isn't that a pretty palette too? Paul Ruben's has some really nice looking palettes. And of course, the box set. So here is the swatch book that we made in the last video. And if you missed that, I'll link that up in the corner for you. It was quite long, but very comprehensive, comparing the 36 tube set to all of the pans I have in all of the sets you just saw. However, there are quite a few half pans still left in those sets that I didn't show you guys because they didn't have any matches with the tube set. And so what I'm going to do is take this tin. Those are all the half pans that we looked at last week. Or in the last video, I should say. At this point, it's probably been 2 weeks ago. And going to get out all of these and this pearlescent set, it's so pretty, and combine them into one big palette in this tin that I got from my grandma's house. It was probably actually my great-grandma's tin because my grandma moved into her house. Anyway, here is the only half pan I have left from this set, and we're going to compare it to these other colors and kind of see. It does not match pigment or name. It'll be one or the other, and so we have to look and see if they're the same, because at first I was going to do this by only getting colors that are similar. So like if these three looked exactly the same, for example, I was only going to pick one of them. And you'll see that star next to that middle one. When you see that, that means they are going in the big palette no matter what. And then I am adding in all these other colors and then going back through this and starring any more that are going to make it in the big palette. What I decided to do in the end, however, was put every single color that is different in any way at all into the big palette. So if it was slightly different in hue, even though it had the same name or same pigment, I would add it in the big palette. Or if it was slightly different in pigment but the same name, I would add it in the palette, so that I would have an absolute comprehensive palette of all of my Paul Ruben's watercolors. And sometimes things were a little bit confusing, so I'm really glad I kept all the brochures and information that came with each palette. And in fact, I'm going to keep them even to this day. I'm going to put them in folders and put them in some kind of binder here in my studio so I can reference them later if I continue to get confused once in a while about their pigments or which set they came from. I can have the original information to refer back to. And I think you can see here that this is also called Indian Yellow from the 4th gen set, but it has different pigments, the PY110 and the PY, I think it's a 115. I can't quite read it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it says. So I think you can see that the hue of those 4 are all pretty much the same, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in the big palette just to make sure. Now here I'm swatching cadmium red hue from the 4th generation. Just wanted to see how it compared to the actual cadmium reds from the other sets, but you can see the pigment is a PR255. So I did hit that with a heat gun, but I cut that out so you didn't have to sit through that. And it is similar but different enough, and since it's a different pigment, it's going in the big palette. So here is yet another example of a color that I want to see how it compares, and I don't really have space for it. It's a dark color, it's a brown. This one is called Burned Brown, and it's a PY42 according to all the literature, and you can see it's quite different from all the browns in the row above it, so it will be going in the large palette as well. And here's what it looks like all dry. It's quite pretty actually. And I'm going to flip back just to double check that it didn't have other browns that I needed to compare it to, such as burnt siennas and whatnot. And that concludes the 4th generation palette in its entirety. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the 3 remaining half pans from the floral set. And there is my note about this set from previous video I did on it. Thank goodness for those notes. They have the names, the pigment information, valuable information to have. So this one looks like a red or an orange, so I'm flipping back to that page and seeing kind of where I think it might compare and where I should swatch it next to so that I can reference it in the right place. In the video here, it definitely looks like I'm in the wrong place for swatching this one because it looks very orange. And we can see here that it is not a match for chromium orange hue, that's for sure. So you can see here, it's a little off screen, sorry about that. I am swatching it next to the PO71s from earlier. This one is called Permanent Orange Hue, I believe, and it's a PO73 mixed with a PY74. And I'm going to dry it off because I want to do this in a hurry. And I'm not going to wait for paint to dry, so thank goodness for heat guns. But you can see that it matches the hue of those other oranges pretty nicely. However, because it has a different name and different pigments, I am going to add it to the palette, of course. And then I'm going to label this before I forget it, even though it's on the wrong page. Still want to know what it is later. I don't want to be having empty swatches in there and get confused and not know what it is. Next up is Hooker's Green Brilliant from the floral set. It's a PG17, so I thought I needed to swatch it here for some reason. I'm not sure why, maybe by the look of the palette, or I was confused between that one and the Emerald Green Light in that set. I remember in the last video when I was recording that I was having some confusion between the two, so I'm really glad I left the labels on the floral set because the actual sticker that came on the half pans is still on the bottom and the sides of this half pan. So there's no getting them confused. And obviously this looks to me like the Hooker's Green should look. It does not look like an Emerald Green Light should look. So I was glad to have confirmed that everything was correct. It just now is swatched in the wrong place, but that's okay. And there it is, all dry, or mostly dry anyway. Dry enough to move along. I did go ahead and swatch the Hooker's Green Brilliant on the next page where I thought it would probably match more with those above it, just to see. It doesn't match really any of them, so it is its own paint and it will make it to the large palette, of course. This next one here is Cypress Brown Deep from the floral set. This one's really pretty, isn't it? It's a PBR 9 and I like it. I remember when I first swatched the browns in the floral set, I felt that they were kind of weak, but I don't know that I feel that way anymore. Yeah, maybe that one burnt sienna is a little bit underwhelming, but this one's quite nice. And on those others, if you just let water sit on them for just a minute or so, then you get a lot more paint out of it as usual. And here it is all dry. And that concludes the floral set. All done, all empty, yay. Next up is the beautiful Emerald set, or the 3rd generation. Looks to me like there are 5 half pans left in there, white being one of them, but I believe I already have a white, so I just go ahead and put that one aside. I am just double checking pigment names, pigment numbers, and making sure I didn't leave something in there that was unnecessary, like this one here. This is Indian Yellow from the 4th gen, and it looks like we have an Indian Yellow with the exact same pigments here in this Emerald set. So let's swatch them and make sure they actually have the same hue, because there were some color shifts between generations. Paul Ruben's is a lot more consistent these days, and maybe they even were back then. I'm kind of learning that they were a little consistent in a way that we didn't realize until we get all these sets together and compare them like that, which is really neat. However, let's find out for sure, just so we cover all our bases and we're as thorough as possible. The last thing with this big project will be to make sure everything's in the watercolor database. I do have a list of about 20 or more paints that I still have to swatch to add to that database, and then do all the light fast swatching for getting them in the window and seeing which ones of these are light fast and which are not. Next up, we have the cadmium red hue from the Emerald set. It's a PR255. I suspect it's going to match the cadmium red hue from the 4th generation, but I'm about to find out. What do you think? Will it match? And here it is in its wet form. It is so strong. I got way too much pigment, kept trying to dilute it, but it's not going to show as an exact match right now because I have a lot more pigment, but there it is dry. And because I got so much more pigment, I actually got out the other one again and tried to swatch it with more pigment, and the light's glaring on it a little bit, but I was still having a hard time telling. So I got out my handy dandy little hole punch, which is great because it blocks out all the other colors and the things that confuse you, and you can really see what the color actually is. And oh, I see, I didn't actually swatch the previous color out lighter. I swatched the same color out lighter. Or wait, the previous color darker, I swatched that color lighter. Yes. Pretty sure you guys knew what I meant. But by doing this, I kind of felt that they were the same hue. Moving on to the next color in the emerald set, this is the burnt umber. It is also listed as a PY42, but you can see that it is dark and beautiful. It is such a nice brown. I am so glad I have this brown. However, I was curious how it compared to the burned brown of the 4th gen, which was also PY42. And they look fairly similar, but I'm going to dry them off with a hairdryer to make sure and see what I really think. What I discovered is that I made a mistake. Go figure. It's not burned brown on the 4th generation here. It is actually called burnt umber as well. And they're both PY42s. However, they are enough different that I ended up including them both in the large palette. And so what I did was grab that other one out and swatch it right next to this one so that we could really see, do they match or not? And they do not. And here they are dried, so you can definitely see a difference between the two. Next up is the Payne's Gray. I somehow didn't get it on video. It's a PR101, a PBK7, and a PB29. And I'm going to dry it off so I can really see what it looks like and can shut the page and continue on. So it is pretty neat. Granulating. I was flipping the page here to see how it compares to the other blacks and grays and swatching it right above or below ones that I was interested in seeing it compared to. And it definitely has a little bit of the blue tint to it. I like it a lot. And there it is dry. You can see that blue coming through a little bit better. And that concludes the emerald set. Isn't that exciting? We're getting closer. Next up is this pearlescent set. I requested Paul Ruben's to send this to me when they asked if there was any products I was interested in. And I believe I've had it probably close to a year, maybe not quite that long, but it sure feels like I've had it for a while. Just haven't had the opportunity to pull it out and use it. But I do have this gray sheet of paper here in this Caddy Fat book with only 2 of the interference colors from Core tested on it. And I felt like that was enough room to test these colors. I just wanted to swatch them out, see what they look like on darker paper. Although I found out they actually look really pretty on white paper too. But let's take a look and see what we think. Here they are, all unwrapped and beautiful. I just pasted their labels into the sketchbook. I figured that's probably the safest place for them. I didn't need to have the labels in the big palette. I'm just going to write down that information. You'll see how I do that later. But this was fun. I did spray these ahead of time. Usually metallic and pearlescent watercolors need a little bit of waking up time, and I didn't feel like these would be any different. So I don't think I sprayed them. I just dropped some water on them with a pipette because I don't really like spraying palettes like this that are made from metal. Sometimes they get rusty and I don't like that. It also makes them a little bit messy. But you can see these colors are quite brilliant, and I need to find really good ways. In fact, I have a whole video planned on ways to use metallic and pearlescent paints. It probably won't come out until sometime next year because I have a pretty full schedule of videos already in line for you guys, but I am excited to delve into that one. So what I want from you guys, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the comments below, what do you use your metallic and or pearlescent paints for? Give me all the details. I want to know everything. I want my video about this to be as comprehensive as possible, and you guys always think of stuff I don't even think of and wouldn't have even thought of without having your comment there. So appreciate the help. I am excited to read them. It's been taking me a while to reply to comments lately, but I do try and get to them eventually, even if it is 3 weeks later. So bear with me there, but I appreciate if you wouldn't mind taking the time. Also, if you don't use metallic or pearlescent paints at all, let me know that too. And perhaps the reason why. I am very much curious about people's whys. Now, this gray paper that I'm swatching on is, I believe, just the cover paper. So the paper that the Caddy Fat Book uses as the cover page. And that means it's pretty absorbent. It's not quite like their watercolor paper that is throughout the entire rest of the Fat Book. So these colors may look differently on black watercolor paper, regular watercolor paper, and so on. I'm excited to try the black watercolor paper, although you won't see that in this video, but I do a swatch of these on regular watercolor paper that's cotton with a black Sharpie line, so you'll get to see what they look like later on white and a little bit of black on top of white watercolor paper. Now you'll notice only part of the label is on here because the sides of the labels were actually pretty sticky. So the good news is the part I left on the half pan is the part of the label with the name. So I peeled up the one side and cut across the top so that the side with the name stayed on the half pan because they're kind of long names and I didn't want to have to write that with a Sharpie on all of them, and was able to just put the rest of the label in here, which made them all fit because 24 colors on this page was actually a tighter fit than I realized it would be, but I think I did pretty good fitting them all here. Now here I just wanted to see what that silver black looked like on the white paper, so that's what I did over on the left, and then same with this black grape, or no, flash purple. I think that's what that's called. Sorry, it's hard for me to read in my editing software here, but they're quite pretty. And here they all are, mostly dried by now, except those last few. Very, very nice. What a big selection of iridescent or pearlescent, I guess, colors. Should be fun to find some good uses for them. So one disadvantage of creating a palette that has all of your watercolors in it is that it may end up so big that you don't want to use it. So I have these little palettes. This one was sent to me by a good friend. It's so cute. It has little cats on it. But this one here is a little sewing kit I found and picked up because, actually I think I found it at my grandma's house and just snagged it and brought it home. And yes, inside's a sewing kit. But because the cover is kind of a Chinese style, it really reminded me of the Paul Ruben's brand. So I felt that I would save that adorable cat one for another palette and use the Chinese inspired one for the Paul Ruben's colors, because if I have a small little palette like this, I will be more inclined to take it traveling with me, and I travel all the time. So I'm creating a cute little palette, and these are the colors I want. Unfortunately, there are 12 slots and 14 colors that I want. So I'm going to do a little bit of experimenting in the sketchbook to see if I can reproduce a couple of the colors. For example, the Indian red and the burnt sienna. I want to see if I can make those on my own. And I got pretty close with the burnt sienna, which you can kind of see once these get all dry. It's a little bit darker, so I'm trying again and definitely getting more of a successful match to the burnt sienna. I did try matching the Indian red as well, but something in me just wanted the Indian red in here so badly. So that's what I chose. Sometimes you just have to go with your heart and what you really want in a palette because you're more inclined to use it that way. I'll show you this palette again at the end, but I do take it outside and I tape it off and I spray it with the Krylon Appliance white paint so that I have a white mixing area in the lid instead of this pretty gold, even though it's pretty. I wanted a white mixing area, and then just figured out the order and started pouring the paints in here, and I will tell you all the colors here very momentarily. But that appliance white paint, sometimes called appliance epoxy, has been invaluable in all of my own palette creations because it tends to last very well and it gives me that lovely white mixing space. My colors here are cadmium yellow light, which is a PY35, Indian yellow PY83, yellow ochre PY42, Pyrrole Ruby Red, PR 254, Sap Green, PY 153 and PG 7, Olive Green, PO 62 and PG 36, Brown Umber, PB 15:1, PBR 7 and PBK 9, Quinacridone Maroon, PV 42, Transparent Turquoise, PB 16, it's a beautiful one, Cobalt Blue Light, PB 28, Indigo, PB 15:1 and PBK 6, and Indian Red, PR 101 and PR 206. My unicorn color, I had to have it. It's not a unicorn color, but I don't know. I've heard that term a lot lately. It just came out. There it is. And I did let this little palette kind of distract me in the middle of making this mess because I realized I needed it to dry. Plus, I wanted to spray the lid of this palette. You can see it white there, and the lid of the little one, and let that dry. And the white cards facing up are ones that I do not have swatched in my database. I don't know how I have so many missing, but some are the new colors from the tube set here. Quite a process. Okay, I finished. Are you ready to see it? Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. Just so you know, this took over 8 hours. 8 hours. Because first of all, you have to decide on the order your paints are going to be in. That takes a long time. Second of all, you kind of need to know what your colors look like. Luckily, I had all of my colors here, well, for the most part, and so that made that way easy. That was a hugely useful resource. And then my magnets were just in strips, and they did come pre-sticky, but they're so old. They're from my grandma's house, which was probably my great-grandma's magnets, so I had to put double-sided sticky tape on every pan. I had to cut them, this double-sided sticky tape, put them on every pan, cut the magnets to the right size, and then stick those on the pan, and then put them in here. Hopefully that was worth it. It's 79 watercolors plus the 24 pearlescents. Now I'm just going to make a swatch sheet for them. So I did this with math. Actually, I kind of cheated. I'll show you. This is super cool. This ruler is from my childhood. My dad used to have it on his desk all the time, and it has all of these different forms of measurement. And so if I needed to divide something by 14, for example, I found this one that has the 28, well, 36, but my paper width was 28, and 28 divided by 14 is 2, so I could make them every 2, and then I would find stuff that was divisible by 13 and 15 and so on based on how many pans I had. So I wouldn't want to do this again, which means I better not mess it up. Even if I mess it up, I'm just going to put another piece of watercolor over the top of the little square I messed up. But hopefully I just won't mess up anything, right? Right. So it is kind of fortuitous, and you would never have been able to plan this perfectly if you had tried, but Paul Ruben's is having their 15th anniversary sale. I'm using the Paul Ruben's cold pressed paper, by the way, for the swatching. It's quite nice. It does dry quickly though, so beware of that. Back to this. They're having their 15th anniversary sale right now. If you're watching this on the day it's released or the week it's released, it's going from August 21st through August 25th, 2025. And all of their products are 10 up to 20% off. So if you've ever wanted to try their paper, which is 100% cotton, their glitter paper, which I love and have recommended for years in all of my gift guides, any of their watercolor palettes they have out, I'll be showing you some brand new products near the end of this video that you might want to check out for sure. Some of them are very exciting. This is the time to take advantage of anything you might want from Paul Ruben's. They're also doing a painting challenge on Facebook and Instagram, which I will try and find and link in the description below the video here, as well as any products you'll see in this video. I'll link below as well. Some of the darker paint you're seeing in this video are from the Paul Ruben's Precipitating set. It is so lovely. Do you see that lovely purple up there? That's real dark. That lovely dark green. So anyway, I did show that set in a previous video. I'll link it in the corner for you. that is something you could get on sale right now, just so you know. So the skipping around is simply to prevent any bleeding into previous swatches. So it's not the way I would prefer to swatch, especially for you guys watching. It would be super fun for you guys to see this in the right order, but I just couldn't do that. There were too many colors, and the editing of this video has already been a beast, but I am hoping you're enjoying it. However, in case you're wondering why I'm skipping around so much, it's just that. It's just to keep the colors from bleeding into each other. So I'm allowing the spaces around to dry before I continue. And I realized as I started swatching these pearlescent ones, I'm like, oh, that's going to make my water have sparkly stuff in it. So I stopped doing that, refreshed my water, and continued with the regular colors, and then did all of the pearlescent colors at the very end. And this is super fun because you can see what they look like on white and black. I love it. Some of those pearlescent colors are, most of those pearlescent colors are gorgeous, but this is what it looks like at the end. Look at these beautiful colors. I do change it up just a tiny bit, and I'll show that to you as well, and I'll explain why. But this is what it looked like when I was done swatching it and the colors were dry. I did laminate it here, I rounded the corners, and I put numbers on them. I didn't want to try and label all of these little squares, if you will, rectangles. So the numbers just correspond on the back side to the color name, the pigment information, light, fast, any other information that I had about the particular paint, the particular color, and then the pearlescence I labeled with letters A through whatever, X I think. So Paul Rubens threw me a curveball. Dang it. I have this lovely palette all finished up because they were supposed to send me this 48 set originally, and then it wasn't available and they sent me the tube set instead. That's how I did last week's video, or last 2 weeks ago video. This palette has seven colors in it that I don't have in this big palette. Am I going to redo this big palette now? Absolutely not. I don't even have room for 7 more colors. Now there are spaces in between all of these pans, half pans and full pans. I could squish everything together. I could fit 7 more colors in here, but I'm not going to. This is a tall enough palette. See how thick it is actually on the sides and how much space there is between the pan and the top. I'm actually just going to put the new colors here on the lid. I'll attach them with tape instead of magnets probably, so they'll be a little bit more sticky. And just do a little extra swatch sheet here. So let's show you the 6 new colors, and then I have one more new product from Paul Rubens. I don't know how new it is actually, but I haven't seen it before. I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to try it with you guys, and hopefully it looks like a really cool product. Hopefully I'll love it because their anniversary sale is right now, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, and you could get it for a discount. All right, let's check out these 7 new colors in this 48 set. This 48 set comes in a beautiful box. This could use it as a gift box. Comes with the very nice blot cloth, which I like to use to pull the palette out of the box. So very tasteful. If all of these colors would fit in this palette, I would use this palette in a heartbeat. However, they don't, because there are 82 regular colors here plus the 24 pearlescent. So I do like having them in the big palette. The swatch sheet comes on their lovely glitter paper. It's one of my favorite papers of theirs, and it has the information here. It has the pigment information and the pigment name. And this is what they look like. They come individually wrapped, all fancy like. Anyway, this video is already long enough. Let's just swatch the new colors. I'll show them to you and explain them as we go. Here are the 7 new colors. Just doing my homework before we start swatching, and there was one additional color, lamp black. The only blacks we have so far are PBK9 and PBK6. This is a PBK7. I cannot wait to try this. I'm really hoping this lamp black works like the traditional lamp blacks because it will spread and do amazing things. First one we're going to try out is silver. It has no pigment information. Oh, that looks delightful so far. Let's try it on white paper. I'm adding on here because I don't like to waste any space, right? Very pretty. Just a little bit of pearlescence basically on white paper. Let's check it in this little spot here. I know I don't have black paper here, but we don't need it. Nice. And this is gold. Again, no, I don't think any pigment information on this one. Nope. I just put the drop of water on there right before I turned the camera on, so it's been, what, 30 seconds at the most, probably? And it reactivated very nicely. And on the gray paper. I like it. The next new color here is Golden Yellow Ochre. It's a PY43. We don't have any PY43s, do we? It would be with these. So we have Naples Yellow with PY43 in it, but no PY43s on their own. Very interesting. So let's see what a Golden Yellow Ochre looks like, and we'll swatch it over here. I didn't put any water on this ahead of time. Oh, wow. Ooh, that'll be a nice addition to the colors. Let's just flip over to some of the browns, because some of the browns had PY42 in them. Oh yeah, nothing even close. Nice. A very lovely, unique color. Next we have Cadmium Orange Deep. It's a PO20. The only oranges we have are these so far. Ooh, that's lovely. It's an orange. It's like orange's flagship color orange. Ooh, that's so pretty. But I like oranges. So I dried that with the heat gun and it darkened up quite a bit. It's still a completely, not completely, but it is a different color than all of these oranges. But yeah, it got darker. It's still very pretty. I love it a lot. The next color is Agate Brown, PR101. So we have PR101s here, and none of these browns have PR101s, so I'm thinking we'll swatch it over here. What do you think? Maybe up there. Oh, wow. Their new colors are top notch. Isn't that pretty? We do have PR101 in the burnt sienna over here, so let's get it a little bit closer to the burnt sienna and see what it looks like. Wet, it's a lot more red leaning. We'll see. I'll dry it and we'll look. All dry. Yeah, it's just a little bit deeper brown and it has a red tint to it and it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Look at that. I love it. Next up from the 48 set 5th generation, we have Quinacridone Magenta. It's a PR122. And we did have a PR122 from the big palette, but I never swatched it for you guys because it was a unique one all on its own. There was no other PR122 anywhere to compare it to, and all we did were swatch comparisons. So let's swatch the one from the floral set. Now this one says just magenta, not quinacridone magenta. But this is the floral set, PR122. And this is the quinacridone magenta from the 5th generation 48 set. Oh yeah, they're exactly the same. That's good to know. So we don't have to add this one in at all. It can just be a spare. Look at that, completely the same. Really excited for this one. This is the Payne's Gray Bluish. It's a PBK9, a PB29, and a PV23. Payne's Gray Bluish. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, gorgeous. So pretty. And here it is all dry, and you can see how it compares to the Payne's Gray, just regular Payne's Gray from the Emerald set. Granted, the paper kind of separated there, or the pigment separated, one or the other, or both. But this one definitely reads more black, and that one has blue kind of shining through. It's really nice. Last but not least is this Lamp Black. It's a PBK7, and what's supposed to happen with Lamp Blacks is if you put them in water They're supposed to finger out kind of crazy like. So let's give that a try. We'll see if it'll work on this paper. Sometimes the paper makes a huge difference in what they actually do. And I didn't pre-activate this, so let's see if we can't get a nice big amount. Wow, that reactivated very easily. Oh yeah. Oh. Oh my gosh. All right, I'm gonna try that again without the glare so you guys can see that. That was amazing. Here goes. Hopefully the glare doesn't kill you this time. Oh, look at that. I had a stronger pigment base in my brush because the pan had gotten activated, so it was sticky. And I didn't put quite as much water on there because I didn't want it to just run, but you could still see how it just fingered out. Wow, look at that. So yes, lamp black can be amazing. Let's show you how that compares to these blacks here. I don't have a lot of room, but you can see the PBK9 is weak. The PBK6 is super strong. And this sits in the super strong category as well. In my opinion, it's a little more blue leaning, even though it's, you know, just a pure black pigment. Blue or green leaning. Let's try it. Look at that. Strong, gorgeous, deep. It doesn't have that black hole feeling that some blacks do. But let me show you an example of what lamp black can do. To zoom you way out for this one. But anyway, this is supposed to be a little chick. I've never finished it. I didn't have enough pigment in my brush and whatnot, but basically this is something that Rachel Parker Varner showed us on YouTube, and then there's another artist that does this and paints cats all the time. The camera's having a heck of a time focusing on it because it's kind of blurry, but you can see how you can get these soft fur edges, so it's great for things like cats and these chicks and things that are furry. Imagine doing this in the reverse with a black cat and a white background. Lots of powerful things you can do with a lamp black and any color that would fur like this, but lamp black in particular. Also, before I show you these really exciting new coloring pages, I want to just finish up this little palette here. You can see I painted the inside white like I told you, laminated and chopped the corners off my swatch sheet so it fits in there. The quinacridone maroon and, well, several of the colors dried down a lot. So I may need to top those off again because quin maroon is one I know I'll use a lot of. See how far down it is now? These two especially. But I can top them off. I have a week and a half before I travel again. And then if I steal the little magnet from the kitty palette, then I have a magnet. I can attach that to my sketchbook. This I should have made a little bigger and done my usual Velcro trick to Velcro it here so that I could see my colors when I was painting, but I can just maybe set it on my sketchbook for now and redo this later. So it's done, it's ready. I can paint with Paul Ruben's paint now without having to bring that huge palette with me. And I can paint with Paul Ruben's paint easily with the big palette here in the studio. As a side note, here's these dry, and I was using the heat gun and these little papers went flying. So the pans come unlabeled. Before you spread them out much, you probably want to pull them out of the pan and label them immediately so you don't lose track of what they are. Luckily, I only have a few colors out here and I have the swatches labeled in this book, so it's not hard for me to figure out, but could you imagine with 48 if those papers got scattered, cat walked by, label your pans, people. All right, on to Paul Ruben's very exciting product in my opinion, because this is on 100% cotton cold pressed paper. These are coloring pages and they come in this beautiful box. They did come wrapped in plastic, and then inside these are in plastic, which is important with watercolor paper. I don't care what you say about packaging and whatnot. If things aren't wrapped in plastic that are watercolor paper, the sizing can go bad. So you need to have it wrapped. So in a very light ink on every page, and there are 12 different designs, but it's great because they're, like I said, 12 different designs flowers. The printing is super light. Some of the printing will probably even disappear under your painting. So I'll pick one today and we'll try it out. And I'll let you know what I think. A little short on time, so this one seems like a great choice. Can you even see it? I love that light printing. I actually did my coloring book with what I called invisible ink. It was a little lighter than this. I did not put them out for sale though, because I ended up doing another project, but I will eventually, maybe. We have the super extra large palette here with the swatch sheet that I can just pull out, set aside, prop up somewhere. And the new colors just here in the lid. Maybe someday I will redo this palette and redo the swatch sheet and incorporate them, because like I said, there are spaces between these. I can scooch these together, make room for them, but I just don't have it in me today, or this month, or this year, because I also need to get the light fast swatches done for these and get them in the window. And there's a huge list of these paints that I don't have in the window yet. But now the palette's complete and we can use the coloring page with all the colors, except this will only take a few. But still, I can try this palette out and see what I think of it. Because this video is already so long, thank you for hanging in here with me. I am speeding up this entire coloring book process. I am wetting the entire background a couple of times to make sure it's fully wet. I'm using all three of those pretty colors. That's the cobalt turquoise, the transparent turquoise, and some other turquoise I can't quite remember. And it's so nice. And then I accidentally dropped some water on the background, so I decided to just go with it and put a lot of water on the background, and I think that turned out really pretty. This could be a winter rose, and I love it. And now I'm just using a mixture of cadmium red, perylene maroon, or perylene red, can't quite remember its name, along with the Payne's Gray Bluish, the new one, for the darkest areas. And I wanted to bring a little bit of that turquoise into the highlights on the rose, so that's what I'm trying there. Unfortunately, I got it a little too close to the cadmium orange, and I did I did use cadmium orange. I think it was cadmium orange, and it's quite strong, very opaque. I think this flower could have been a lot more transparent and been really pretty as well, but it's new paper to me, and it always takes a while to get used to how a new paper behaves. So while I really enjoyed the wet on wet in the background and it behaved great, I'm not used to hot press paper, which I found out this is. I'll mention that again at the end. And I am not used to this paper in general, but especially hot press paper. So having a wet on wet would have worked better for me, but I didn't know that at first. So I wanted to continue the flower in the way that I had started so that it would all be consistent. I also don't have a painting reference. I briefly glanced at Pixabay to see if I could find a rose that was in a similar layout of this one, you know, similar angle, similar openness, but I didn't find one immediately and I was ready to just move on. And so I'm painting this without a reference, but I think that'd be really helpful because it would help you find your highlights and your shadows. But I think it worked out okay in the end, and I'm just going to say okay. However, I did lose some of the highlights that I would have preferred to keep, and a couple of the highlights I realized later probably should have been in slightly different locations, but that's okay. Without a reference and working somewhat quickly, it was fine. And I really like these Meeden brushes I'm using again. I had a brush set from Lightwish that I thought about trying, but they're quite different than what I usually use, so I went with these tried and true Meeden brushes. I'll link them below, they're very nice. So one thing about these coloring book pages is you don't have to draw, you don't have to know how to draw, you can just start painting. And it's really a lovely feeling when you know you want to paint, but you don't know what to paint. Just pull out one of these and work on it. I don't always paint flowers, you don't see a lot of them on my channel because they do take a long time, but one advantage of painting flowers is that you can paint one petal at a time. So you can do a section and move to another section, and it's very piecemeal painting, which is nice. You can walk away from it really easily. Now here at the end, I decided my highlights just weren't happy enough, and I did try to lift some colors, but unfortunately I used very staining colors, so instead I moved to using the pearlescent watercolors, and I used the really pretty blue pearlescent, and oh my goodness, it was amazing. The pearlescent watercolors, at least this one, was absolutely gorgeous. Remember to check the links in the description box below if you're interested in any Paul Ruben's products. I'll link everything that was in this video down below, plus a couple of extras. Everything's on sale right now through August 25th, and I think they're just quality products for the most part. Not Arches quality, but quality. All right, a few words of wisdom for the coloring pages. I looked it up. It is hot press paper, which I was suspicious about in the beginning because it was so smooth. And I don't normally work on hot press paper. And because of that, you cannot look at my results and say, oh, I don't like that, or oh, I love that, because it's just not a paper that I'm very familiar with. What I do know is the wet and wet method works very well on this paper. The wet paint on dry paper didn't work so well for me. It just dried immediately. So the brush stroke, by the time I was even at the end, dried already. So that was a little interesting for me to deal with. And probably just a result of cotton hot press paper that I'm not familiar with. And possibly the paper itself, but it's still a much higher quality paper than so many of the other watercolor coloring books out there. So if you like flowers, this is the one for you. I noticed also that Lightwish has one out. I thought Paul Ruben's had more than one set. This is what it looks like if you forgot already from a few minutes ago. I could only find the one again, but I did notice, like I said, that Lightwish has one too. That the preview picture is a wreath of some sort. I didn't look at it in a lot of detail, but remember, all Paul Ruben's, and I noticed looks like Lightwish products, as I already mentioned, are also on sale. And if you buy 2 items, you get an extra 5% off. I know this is running for sure from August 21st through the 25th, so if this kind of intrigues you, like when I did this background, I was so impressed. I already mentioned that in the voiceover, but I was like, wow, this works great. And then I did the water splatters off camera because I accidentally dropped water on it and decided to just go with it, and I really like that. One thing I would change in the future, I just didn't really think about it, is I would make this not a floating rose. I would give it a stem, or I don't know, some kind of way to ground it, but it's pretty. And boy, that pearlescent watercolor was amazing. I think that pretty well saved my rose. So this is what the palette looks like. You notice I'm holding it upright. Nothing's going anywhere. And the bottom, the whole bottom section here is just held with magnets. So I can, it's so nice. I can pull them out, rearrange them. I'm not going to rearrange them because my fancy dancy swatch sheet is already set up. But the new ones, they're up there with double-sided tape and a little miniature swatch sheet. That worked fine. So yes, lots of Paul Ruben's products today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I have some puppies at the end. So stay tuned for that. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now. Cute! It's a hot little puppy with no open eyes yet. No open eyes yet.